This is a cell membrane. Cell membranes have different signal receptors embedded in them. For example, this is a G protein coupled receptor. When a signal molecule, also known as a ligand, binds to the G protein receptor, the receptor changes shape and becomes activated. Now the signal transduction pathway begins. Now the G protein binds to the receptor. This causes the GDP to convert to GTP. The G protein moves towards the inactive enzyme. The G protein binds to the enzyme and activates it. This causes the enzyme to change shape. For example, the enzyme catalyzes the conversion of ATP by dropping off 2 phosphates to CAMP. CAMP is a secondary messenger. CAMP spreads throughout the cell and binds to the regulatory portion of the protein kinase. This releases the catalytic portions. The catalytic portions become phosphorylated, causing them to become activated. The cell reaches the cellular response stage. Calcium ions are released from the ER. Signal molecules attach to the tyrosine receptors. This causes the receptors to move closer, creating a dimer. The receptors become activated. ATP phosphorylates the receptors by giving each a phosphate. The ATP becomes ADP. Now the receptors are fully activated. The phosphorylation process activates relay proteins. The relay proteins attach to the tyrosine receptors. The activated relay proteins activate the signal transduction pathway. This causes a cellular response. The cellular response is a release of calcium ions. The disease we chose is drug addiction. Drug addiction is a disease because the abuse of drugs leads to changes in the structure of the brain. Just like diabetes, cancer, and heart disease, addiction is caused by behavioral, environmental, and biological factors. The brain contains many neurons. They communicate using chemical messengers known as neurotransmitters. When a neuron is stimulated, an electrical impulse travels down the axon to the terminal. Neurotransmitters, such as dopamine, move across the synapse and bind to the receptors on another neuron. This allows the signal to be passed. In this case, it will be a pleasurable feeling. Dopamine is then removed from the receptors and is transported back to the transporting neuron through dopamine transporters. Drugs can prevent dopamine from returning. Cocaine binds to dopamine transporter and blocks the reuptake of dopamine molecules. Different drugs act in different ways, but in the end, dopamine builds up in the synapse. Since there is so much dopamine in the synapse when the drug is present, on normal days, things that used to be pleasurable are not anymore. When the drug is given back, the dopamine level rises again and the drug becomes pleasurable. Higher doses of the drug are needed to increase the pleasure in the future. This leads to drug addiction.